Hey everybody, Boris, BK Forex. Welcome to the commodity dollars update for March 8, 2019 for Aussie dollar, dollar CAD, and Kiwi dollar. Com dollars got whacked on Friday very badly and are now really approaching some very key support and resistance levels on all areas. In addition to which, we have two central bank meetings this week, and one of them could be actually very key in how the price resolves itself. So looking at the levels here, Aussie now back towards that absolutely critical 70 support level as it just slid all the way down into the close on Friday. Dollar CAD, perhaps the biggest turn of trade. I mean, last week we were so bullish and it just completely changed sentiment on us. And now it's looking like it wants to take the 34s. It had a massive turn of trade on super bad GDP numbers on Friday. Adding salt to the wound was a decline in oil prices. And if we get this combination of sclerotic Canadian data with oil now dripping below the 55 level, it's the death knell for dollar CAD, or death knell for loonie. Dollar CAD goes right back towards 36, 37. So watching that pair very carefully. We have the Bank of Canada decision this week. That's going to be a key driver. And then Kiwi sort of following everybody else. Kiwi following the Aussie to the downside now with support at 67. The data set this week, we have starting the week here. We have the let me get this over here. We have the RBA decision, I believe, on we have GDP on Tuesday. Well, no, RBA is on Monday, right? We have the RBA on Monday, which is Tuesday to you guys. Nobody expects anything different, but the key thing here is, will there be any shift in tone to a more dovish stance? The last time the market actually was relatively bullish Aussie off the RBA because they maintained essentially a neutral stance, but there's been a lot of wobbles in the Australian housing sector. The economy is definitely sending off some very mixed signals, and it's going to be an interesting question mark whether the RBA is starting to respond or trying to prepare the market perhaps for perhaps even an easing situation going forward. We'll see what they want to say into this statement. But if they say anything even mildly dovish than what they said before, I think that has a chance to test the Aussie to the 70s. We also have GDP coming in. Although we're actually bullish this number because there's improvement in trade, but the retail sales were definitely weaker, so it's kind of a mixed bag. And then, of course, on Wednesday we have the Bank of Canada decision. That's going to be absolutely critical. Now, Bank of Canada actually was very hawkish in his prior statements, and essentially Polis was of the mindset that they're going to hike rates sooner rather than later. The economy was relatively robust. Last Friday's numbers just completely destroyed that argument. The question is, does he back off that stance? Does he simply say, yes, we have to reassess current policy, it's going to be neutral as long as the eye can see? Any kind of a communication that way definitely going to weaken the loonie, push the dollar CAD through the 134s as we go forward. Add to that, at the end of the week, we're going to have the Canadian labor data. So again, if the labor data starts to collapse as a complement to a dovish BOC, 134, even 135, very possible in Canada as we go forward. Let's take a look at the charts here and just see how things shape up on the charts. So let's start with the lower volatility pairs. We'll take a look at the Aussie. You see the Aussie closes, 3 days running of negative trade, closing on the lows, all very negative stuff. The only saving grace here is that we're literally at rock hard support here at around 70, 60. The full support here at the low here, I believe, is 56, right? So the 70, 50, the first area of support, if they can hold it for a day or two, we certainly have a bounce back possibility for maybe 60, 70 points. Just as in a relief rally, kind of an anti-dollar trade. But if they start breaking it really hard, the move towards the 70 could be a snowball effect. So I think it could be one of those sudden bursts to the downside. And I think a break of the 70-50 is going to be very negative for Aussie. Now, Kiwi, same kind of a story, but just different level sets here. Again, we're below the SMA. We failed on the prior move higher. Still have that support at the 67.50 level, but break there takes us to a much more durable support, I think, though, at around 67. That's Kiwi still on a relative bid basis, probably a little bit better trade than Aussie is, because the RBNZ, first of all, is not communicating right now, and secondly, New Zealand is not as vulnerable to a complete collapse of Chinese demand as Australia is, simply because the kind of demand that they satisfy is cyclical rather than secular. They basically sell soft goods like food and everything else, which is almost perpetual demand, whereas Australia does a lot of construction demand for China, and that construction demand seems to be really collapsing. So I still think that there's a very, very strong trade on the Aussie Kiwi cross that we talked about last week that should be watched as we go forward. And then finally, this is the big story. Look at this massive candle. This is a huge, huge reversal candle. We're talking about 6 or 7 days of highs taken out. Again, the only saving grace for loony bulls is that we're smack dab up against this 33 resistance. But if we go 33.50, if we take out this resistance higher, this move can be very, very strong. There is nothing here to stop us all the way to 34.35 if we get dovish BOC, terrible employment data into the week. Right now, the impulse move, this went from a relatively decent sell trade to a really strong buy trade with higher lows, big impulse candle to the upside, and a peak through higher. Perhaps, if you really want to be safe rather than sorry, you may want to see another day. You want to see a day close above 33.50. If that happens, then we break out all the overhead resistance, and that gives us the scope to move much higher as we go forward. That's how the calm dollars shape up. Wish you guys the best luck, the best trading. Boris Schlossberg, over and out.